What's up? This is Rebel Radio.
What up? What up? This is DJ Newmark.
This is Peanut Butter Wolf.
It's your boy. It's okay.
Keep checking out Rebel Radio.
Rebel Radio.
This is Rebel Radio.
We're in the place right here. Rebel Radio is going down.
Would you say Rebel Radio?
Oh, wait. Let's do it again.
Rebel Radio.
What up, what up? Welcome back, Rebels. It's Rebel Radio. I'm your host, Josh Levine. My guest today is a cook, a blogger, and a legit social influencer. Her name's Michelle Tam. She's the owner of Nom Nom Paleo, which was nominated for a James Beard Award. If you don't know what that is, look it up. She's been called the Martha Stewart of Paleo, and not because of any securities fraud or anything like that. She's going to give some tips into living paleo without annoying all your friends. She's surprisingly not really that hardcore paleo. She's much more balanced than you might expect given her position in the paleo community. And she's going to give us some insights into her career path, how she's built this business. She's learned to think of herself as the consumer and really create content that speaks to her and let the rest sort of take care of itself, which I think is interesting. She's also going to give us some cooking hacks and some life tips on getting a good night's sleep. So good stuff for you here. Now let's hear the interview with Michelle.
I know that I'm supposed to talk right into it, but
Actually, scoot back and then just yell.
really? Okay, I can do that though.
This is awesome.
But I think it takes so much time, and
Yeah.
my husband has a real job,
Oh, that's
and
no good.
so he is doing all the editing
God,
and
don't
stuff.
that guy.
I know, right? Except he actually makes everything that everyone loves about Nom Nom Paleo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the cartoons and
Is
the
he here?
graphics.
Because maybe...
Yeah, that's who you
Maybe
should
we
be
should talk
talking
to
to.
him.
Yeah, no, he's not.
No.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming. This is exciting. No one's brought socks or a vinyl toy.
Because
To be
nobody is money stupid enough to do something like
No, this is so cool. How does this happen? Tell us.
We, Henry and I just whenever we like something, we're like,
Yeah.
oh, let's just do it. And so when we were thinking of how to market our cookbook, Henry's like, we should do a mini Michelle vinyl action figure.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. And so, we didn't know anybody who made dolls. And so, we just went to Google and he just Googled and he found this company based in Toronto.
So these are not Alibaba products.
They are not. In fact,
Wow.
we even thought about that for our socks. And I think we got a quote from some person in China.
Yeah.
But then the socks totally sucked.
Oh,
And
yeah,
so-
that's how it works.
Yeah, and so then...
That's part of the game.
I really, really like Gumball Poodle socks. They make the coolest socks ever.
I've never heard of that.
They make bacon socks. They have, if you Google now, they have some Bernie Sanders and Trump socks where they
Okay.
actually have hair.
No way.
And they're super cute.
That's amazing.
And so...
Oh, is that what you're wearing? Oh, you're not wearing
No,
socks?
I'm not wearing socks. I have little hidden socks. But Gumball Poodle makes them. And so I contacted them, do you guys do custom socks? Because it would be cool if we could do Nom Nom Paleo socks. And she's like, yeah, we can do custom. And so we did it. And then I think we sold some, but it was such a pain because I was shipping them myself. And at the time,
Sure.
I was still working as a night shift pharmacist.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
And so then now I just kind of give them away to people because it's too much of a pain to send stuff.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Just a bag full of socks. I love it.
It is. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I'm excited to have you here. Like I said, I was listening to your podcast, and it was a lot
The
of
one
fun.
that's kind of defunct.
Yeah, the
It's not
podcast
totally
that's no
defunct.
longer okay.
But it's no longer weekly. I think initially we promised it would be weekly.
Weekly's hard.
Yeah. And then we promised it was bi-weekly.
Yeah.
And then now it's been over a month since our last one. But I think the thing is, Nom Nom Paleo is only me, and I'm a full-time mom, so it kind of fits around when the kids are in school and when they're sleeping. And my husband, who is has a real job as an attorney, so he does it when he's not at work.
Sure.
And then we have now a guy who kind of helps behind the scenes. But
I heard about him.
But he just kind of helps him with Facebook.
The
Lauren.
fitness nerds.
Yes, I found him at Camp Nerd Fitness.
Right.
And so, but it's just a small team, and so we can only do
Sure.
so much. And I think I was listening to Tim Ferriss, and they were talking about how long it takes them to put together a podcast.
Yeah. What do you say?
He says, well, for him, I think it's a little faster because his isn't scripted or anything.
That guy's a liar because he says he does everything in under 4 hours.
I know.
There's no...
But like all
Can't
of
trust
the...
Tim Ferriss.
Right, like all of the, NPR people and This American Life people, like those take months.
Really?
For each one. Yeah, and they're all scripted. And I was just like, maybe it's okay if ours doesn't come out that often. And we just make sure that when it does come out, that it's something that we're proud of.
Yeah.
And if we're not proud of it, we're just not going to put one out.
Sure. Yeah. And is that how you're doing your scripting?
We are kind of scripting.
How do you script the kids?
You can't. So for
because your kids
adults,
they're on the show with you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're edited.
And
they're
how old are they?
highly edited.
Well, I would hope so.
Yeah, they're 8 and 11.
Nice.
And so I think for
You
Henry
have to
and
edit
I,
out all their swearing.
they know not to do it
Okay,
when
good.
we're being recorded.
Nice.
But we've told them that our house is a safe space.
Uh-huh.
But
Okay.
outside of the house, you can't use these words.
Nice.
And you can't use them in anger towards someone.
Okay.
But you can say them as much as you want.
That's pretty good.
But I think for Henry and I, we script it just so we know what we're saying. And then we have the kids come in and they kind of say whatever. And so then they are not, it's hard to script the kids because then when they read, it sounds so lame.
Sure.
So we just try to have them come in and we try to edit in. And I think that's why it takes so long is because we have to edit a lot.
Yeah.
And I think Henry just learned how to do it on GarageBand.
Uh-huh.
He Googled how to do it. And so it's
Yeah.
not like this is something we're experts at. So it just takes a long time.
But you are the expert at paleo. I think I read that you're the Martha Stewart of paleo.
You know what's funny about that quote is so I think the New York Times called me something of the Martha Stewart of paleo.
Yeah.
But I think I think CBS News then called me the Martha Stewart of paleo, not knowing that the New York Times was being very derisive and was saying she's something of a. But now we're like, hey, someone said I was the Martha Stewart of paleo, so okay, I'll go with it.
And is that because you went to jail for securities fraud?
No.
Oh.
I don't know. I was like, it's because I'm like the old lady in paleo.
I don't think it's
That's
that.
mean. Oh, well, yeah, I've heard that about her.
Well, maybe her.
Yeah, but
I don't think
know.
that's what they mean.
Yeah, but I was
for
like,
you.
I don't know. That's cool.
I think it means like all-knowing, authoritative. Is what I get.
Yeah. Well, that is actually something that bothers me when people ask me, "Is this paleo? Is this not paleo?
Right.
Why are you eating this?" And
Like you're the arbiter.
yeah, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, my whole thing. Maybe when I first started paleo, I was way more strict about it, and I was like, no, this is very black and white. You can't eat this or this. But then, now that I've been doing it for like 5 or 6 years, and I've had
Like,
lots.
Fillet of fish? Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever.
But I think that as long as you're mindful of what you're eating and
Okay.
you're just paying attention and you're making a mindful choice, like say you want a fillet of fish, you know that it's not the healthiest thing in the world,
Right.
but you are making the choice to eat it and you'll take the consequences. As opposed to before, I think when I used to eat, I would just eat things that I was told was healthy or I assumed was healthy, and I never thought about how I felt, and I felt crappy all the time, but I
Right.
just thought I was just getting older, or that's just what happens.
Sure.
But then I think when I just started paying attention and like it's like, oh, the veil was lifted, and that's when I got annoying for a little bit. And then I think I had a lot of friends and family say, you know, you're being super judgmental
Wow.
and annoying. So I'm like, okay, fine, I will just put this on the internet.
It's great
And then-
feedback.
Yes. And then, but I took that feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now it's just there on the interwebs for free if you
Right.
want to find it.
Sure.
And if you do, it's all there. And so I think that's a better way instead of trying to like be this crazy paleo evangelist. And
Which seems to be the norm. You know, I think so. You know, I am loosely follow. You know, some paleo.
cool. You can be bi paleo, you can be paleo light, whatever works for you.
I wouldn't describe myself that way, but I think it's exactly what you said. I really pay close attention to what I eat, and so some of those things may or may not fit into a paleo regimen, but I'm conscious of what I'm putting into my body, and you know that's important to me, whatever those choices are. But you know that's really hard to sell. right? And what's diet trends seem to be in inexhaustible supply, right? Like there's always a new thing. I remember, when I was a kid, like we couldn't eat eggs and everything was low fat.
Yep.
And then, Atkins came along, right? There's this constant replenishing of the diet bookshelves.
Yeah, I almost feel like we probably reached peak paleo.
Okay.
But I'm okay with that because I think for me, I'm not totally wedded to this whole idea of paleo that is totally fixed and like totally you can't fix it or change it. Like I think that's stupid. Like if you have this totally prescribed idea of what your diet has to be and you can't waver from it, even if like new information comes up or it doesn't work for you, like I think that's not the best diet. Like for me, I discovered paleo and that's how I kind of got introduced to all of this stuff. But as new information comes out or I've tried different things with myself, like I don't think there is a one size fits all for anybody. And people just have to see what works for them. I think it works if you kind of do like a 30-day reset and kind of cut out things that are, normally cause people problems. But then once that 30 days is over, you have to eat in the real world and see what works for you and systematically try out things and see how that affects you. But like I eat things that are not, traditionally paleo. Like I eat some white rice.
Blasphemy.
I know. I was on a taco crawl today.
Really? Where'd you go?
What is that place? It's something Punta, something with a 5 in East LA. It was really good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on my Instagram.
Nice. All right, we'll
and
check
then we
that.
went to a Oaxacan place for lunch, and then we had some.
Yeah, Mexican food is tough with paleo.
Yeah, but you can go gluten free. So I think for me, I know that I gluten does not work well with my body. And so that's kind of my cutoff when I go out to eat. I was like, oh, do you just have pizza and just say F it? And I'm like, no, actually I don't because I don't want to, I don't want to go into TMI, but, I want to
feel bad.
Yeah, I don't want to feel bad.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, so I kind of know what my cutoffs are, but I will do like a gluten-free treat and I will do other things that are, kind of junky, but at least I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Whereas before, I think I would eat all these low-fat muffins and all this crappy processed low-fat stuff all the time. And I was like, oh, it must be healthy. It's only 100 calories or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm like, okay, I'm going to eat this. And if it stops tasting good, I'm going to stop eating it.
Yeah.
And like before, I would have like a giant thing of like whole grain whatever, which tasted awful.
Right.
But now it's like I'll have like a piece of protein that's probably the size of my hand, but I care about the quality of that protein. And then the rest of the plate is vegetables. And I probably eat more vegetables now than when I used to like be a semi-vegetarian. And I just feel better. But I think a lot of people the reason why I think paleo becomes kind of popular, or if people do like a Whole30, it's they really do feel better. Yeah. Like if they stick with it. And I think that's kind of what happened.
Sure. I mean, you're cutting out all this junk. And
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So wait, I have a bunch of questions for you, but I want to hear how you got started in this. And so you're a pharmacist? Is that?
I am a drug dealer by trade.
Okay.
I am licensed.
Yeah.
And so I graduated with the pharmacy doctorate. When I was in pharmacy school, I thought I wanted to work at a drug company and, just do drug information.
Really?
Yeah. And then
did you go up, like, were you going to medical school? Is that
your path?
What was?
I think
What's the childhood like for
What's the childhood? Well, pretty traditional Chinese American.
Did you grow up in San Francisco?
I grew up in Menlo Park.
Oh, okay.
So in the Bay Area.
I'm from San Francisco.
Yeah, I went to Cal.
Okay.
And then when I was at Cal, I did a bunch of kind of the whole pre-med courses, but I was like, I don't want to be a doctor because I don't want to touch naked people. Like, I don't want to be a dentist because I don't want to stick my hand in anybody's mouth. I don't want to be an optometrist because I don't want to stick my hand in anyone's eyes.
So you're like kind of a germaphobe.
At the time I was, but
Were you?
now I believe in the whole microbiome thing.
Okay.
And I'm way,
Okay.
see, that's the thing. Like, there are lots of things that have changed since I was in college
Yeah.
about how I feel.
I'm sure.
And so then I was like, well, maybe I'll do nutrition because that's really interesting. I love food. But what's really interesting is nutrition and food science in the early 90s was all about low fat
Yeah,
and how saturated fat is bad for you
totally.
and all of this stuff. So I'm like, oh, this is what must be right. And then I think I tried working in a lab, but I hated working in a lab. And I was like, what other choice is there? And so I think one day my sister was going to school at UC San Diego, and she gave me this necklace that had some lead in it that I think she got in Tijuana. And so it was really pretty, and I used to wear it all the time. And one day I went to the bathroom, and I took a shower, and when I came back, I was holding the necklace, and when I looked, it had shattered. And I was like, oh, my God, there's, like, mercury everywhere. Like, this isn't good.
Wow.
Then I called the Poison Control Center, and I kept on calling them and say, oh, is this okay? And they, like, reassured me that it was probably okay, but I should move. Which was fine because I was renting. And then I was like, well, what kind of qualifications do you guys have? Like, what degrees do you guys have to kind of tell me that
I'm sure they
everything's okay?
appreciated that.
I know, like some little snotty-nosed, like 19-year-old. And they're like, oh, we're all pharmacists. We all have pharmacy doctorates. I'm like,
wow.
huh, that's a very interesting thing. I didn't know that you could do other things besides, counting pills. And so then I looked into pharmacy school, and it seemed very clean. And so then I went to pharmacy school, and I thought I was going to work in drug information and work at a drug company. And then I did work at one for a little bit. And when I did, I was like, this is not where I want to work. This is like, it was eye-opening just what kind of goes on behind the scenes. And like all of these clinical trials.
What's an example?
Well, okay, so I think when you're in
We're going to do
school-
an expose of the
No,
Big
it's not,
Pharma
it's
on
not
Rebel
really.
Radio.
It's not really like. But I think when you're in school, you see all these like clinical trials, things that are written up in like, JAMA or all of these medical journals, and you think, oh, these are totally solid. But then when I was working at a drug company, I was like, oh, really? Like the drug company hires people to write these studies, and they just pay the doctor to put their name on it. I mean, there was just all these things where I was like, I don't know that this is what I thought it was going to be like. And so then I ended up being an ICU pharmacist at Stanford, but the hours were crazy. And so then the night shift position came up, which sounds crazy, but at least I would know what my schedule was. So I would work 7 nights on and then 7 off.
Oh, wow.
And so, but you're working shift work. So it's not like you're a doctor and you're working like 72 hours in a row or whatever it is.
Right.
Like I work a 10-hour shift and then I sleep during the day. And then in my week off, like I'm totally free. And so I did that for a long time. And all the money we had before we had kids would just go towards going out to eat and traveling. And then we had our kids, and then my husband and I just were totally out of shape and felt terrible. And so he started kind of looking for home DVDs that we could do. So he did P90X.
Okay.
And I did like the girl version of it. And through P90X.
I think it's actually co-ed.
No, it is. It is. But there's this woman who I really admire named Shalene Johnson.
Okay.
And she had like Shalene Extreme. So I did that one. I mean, I know they're both co-ed. But I think through P90X, he discovered Paleo because Mark Sisson was on one of the videos as some sort of like nutrition consultant. And then he was telling me all about this crazy paleo diet thing. And I'm like, that sounds not healthy. Like,
what year is that?
So 2010, 2009, 2010.
Okay. It's pretty early in that.
Not super early, but earlier than I normally adopt things. I'm kind of like, I'm going to wait to see what all the bugs are before I buy like the new iPhone or whatever. And so he tried it and he felt great.
James is nodding. He's still on a BlackBerry. the
BlackBerry,
the
wow.
monochrome one.
Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't take any chances.
Yeah. And so he tried it. He felt great and he looked great and he had all this energy. But I was like, what do you mean you're eating fat? And what do you mean you're eating red meat and all this other stuff? And look, I'm going to make whole grain pizza and, all this other stuff. He's like, that's okay. I'll have, my steak salad or whatever. But I think he didn't try to push it on me at all. And I think it's because he knows that if he tries to push it on me, I'll just be like, no way.
Sure.
And so then I decided to try it on my own. And then I felt so great that I became this crazy evangelist. And then I've always loved food blogs, but I think by 2010, there were already tons and tons of food blogs. Sure. And I was like, I can't contribute anything different.
And were you blogging already?
No, Henry had been the blogger before. So he had I think he had a daddy blog initially when our first kid was born. And it actually, Oliver Wang and him were part of this Asian dad blogging group.
I think I see his posts about that, yeah.
And then he decided to start a fitness blog right when he started P90X. And that's how he stayed accountable, and it was called Fit Bomb. And he would talk every day about his workout, and he'd do research on the people in the videos. And that's how he discovered, I think, Mark Sisson. Mm-hmm. And then I always read them, but I didn't think I would do anything. And then when I discovered paleo, I was like, oh, I should do like a paleo food blog, because there are some out there, but there's not anything that really is like speaks to me. And so then I think he's like, really? You would do it? I'm like, yeah. I think I just said it offhand. So then I guess that day he decided to buy, start a Tumblr for me, and it still is a Tumblr.
Nice.
He's like, what would you call it? I'm like, Nom Nom Paleo. And so then that's how we stuck with the name.
Cool.
Yeah, and that's how it started.
Nice.
And we're still on Tumblr, which is probably the dumbest thing, because it's not made to be for food blogs. So there's all these plugins that we can't use. Yeah. Like, it's not good for SEO. The pictures are hard to pin. So I think we do need to migrate off of Tumblr, but
well, Wix is a sponsor of this show. We can hook you up.
Yeah,
easy.
Yeah, that's cool.
I actually supported one of your sponsors after listening to your show.
Who?
Thrive Market.
Oh, well, they're not officially a sponsor, but we like them.
Okay. Well, they seem like a sponsor.
Yeah.
And I love the little promo you did with them on your site.
We're actually we're a teeny tiny investor, but I think that they do really. I love the products they have.
Yeah.
I think
I hadn't heard of them before.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
That's cool. Nice. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So you start this up, and what does anybody care?
Initially, I don't think so. So I was just posting stuff that I thought would be helpful to someone like me who's like trying to learn paleo or to eat paleo. So I was just posting what I was eating, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that became kind of unsustainable because I was like posting 3 times a day.
Right.
And so I think I started posting like all the stuff I was eating and with terrible iPhone pictures. And then eventually I started morphing into like recipes because I was like, oh, this is what I made. And it was more a record for myself. And I don't really even know how other people started finding it. I think I started commenting on other paleo blogs. And so then they would link back. And I started going to some paleo conferences. Okay. And then maybe that's kind of how it all started. But I think the whole paleo movement the whole momentum started in like 2010, 2011. And I guess more people started discovering it that way. And then I think when there were more eyeballs on it, Henry was like, you really have to fix your pictures. And I was like, well, I don't really know how to do that. I mean, I know what looks good and what doesn't look good.
Yeah. Food photography is it's a whole science,
different
right?
thing.
Yeah.
But Henry is very artistic. And so I was like, okay, so if you want me to improve how things look, you need to just help me. And so then he kind of shut down his fitness blog. And so he helps with the pictures. And it has, my blog has changed over the years. So I think initially I was posting everything I was eating. And then I was posting daily. And then I was doing recipes. But now it's more like once a week I will do recipes. So it's more kind of evergreen content.
Yeah.
But we have stayed with the whole step-by-step pictures, which is what we did since the beginning. Because I think for me, I was like, well, this is how I think it would be the easiest for people to cook. If they could see step-by-step what it should look like. And so then they won't get discouraged or, they know they're on the right track or not on the right track. Because I know what it's like to try a recipe and to have spent all of this money and all of this sweat equity to end up with something crappy. And then you never want to cook again, right?
Sure.
And so I think for the blog and for our book and our app and stuff, we just want to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah.
And hopefully pretty and inspiring to people.
So what was the feedback or when did you start getting a response that made you think you were onto something?
I think 2012 was when our traffic took off. But you know what's really funny is I don't really look at our numbers. Like I know that we have a lot of readers and a lot of engagement, but because of my real life, I don't seem to know these people. They just kind of seem like numbers. Like I don't know if that makes sense. Like so we've never really chased numbers, I guess. I mean, if we see it dipping, we're like, oh no, it's dipping. But I don't even think of it. I almost think of it as like a video game. We're like, oh, let's get to the next, 1,000, Instagram followers or whatever. But I don't think of them as people. And I don't know. I think people discover paleo on their own and they're still discovering it. And then they discover me, I guess. I don't know. Like, I don't know anything about this. Like,
no, it's interesting. I mean, I think, all of corporate America is like obsessing over the numbers.
Yeah, like I was talking to one of my friends and she's like, well, what's your ROI on this? I was like, what does ROI stand for? Like, so she's like, oh, it's return on investment. I'm like, I don't know, because we like everything we kind of put out, we don't really think about it. Like if we have the money, like everything is self-financed. And that's why I think I worked until a year and a half ago at my night shift job. And then Henry still continues to work. But I did it because I was like, this way I'm not dependent on anybody else. I'm not dependent on sponsors. Like if we want to make something crazy, like an action figure, we'll just do it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we've done.
What's the ROI of this action figure?
I don't know. Like, I don't think we've definitely not made our money back.
No.
Yeah, but I think it's just a really fun thing to have out
Yeah.
in the world. And you can buy it on our site, but we
there's like
don't
baby
push
bacon
it.
on here.
There is, and a cleaver and
It's amazing.
eggs.
And you can buy this for yourself.
You can, or I can send you guys some. We have plenty in our garage. But I think that it's just a fun thing to have. Like we just like making fun things.
Yeah, that's so cool. And then why the book?
So we initially did an app first.
Yeah.
So we had an iPad app that we put out in 2012. But I think after that came out, and with the changes, like iOS changes all the time, and you always have to upgrade. And app development is crazy expensive, and we had no clue how expensive it was. And people only want to pay like nothing for an app.
Yeah.
And so I think I was like, well, I'd really like a book because I love cookbooks. I've been a cookbook collector my whole life. And I was like, and it's something physical and tangible. And as cool as the app is and as beautiful as pictures are and how like interactive and fun, like it's not a thing, right, that you can show to like people and say, oh, this is our book.
It's so funny you say that. I interviewed Matthew Modine, the actor.
Oh, yeah.
And he had just put out a book that he also did as an app. Had this interactive kind of iPad experience. And he said, he's like, people will pay $24.95 for a book.
Yes.
With no problem, but no one's going to spend that on an app.
Yeah, people will pay that much for an ebook, which is just like a PDF, right?
Yeah.
That does nothing. Yeah. And you just print it out. It's like a Word document.
Right.
So there's like, there's just this weird, like I think when we first did the app, we did it 2011, so long, way back. Not way back, but in app terms, it's like way back.
Yeah, sure.
So we thought this was like the new wave of cookbooks. Like no one's going to do cookbooks anymore. Right. Everyone's going to want to do iPads. But then I think when like people started throwing money into it, they discovered that consumers didn't want to pay for it. Like no matter how cool it is, they're so used to having like free apps.
Yeah.
And apps are normally just marketing and branding for big companies. And so they just throw money at it and they don't charge anything. But like for like a mom and pop operation, we can't do that.
Yeah.
And so with a book, we're just like, it's tangible. We can make it exactly how we want. And so at first we were going to self-publish. But then our publisher reached out to us and, we negotiated an offer that we really liked. But what we loved about it was they just gave us total creative control, and they trusted us, and they trusted that we knew our audience.
Yeah.
And so it's all designed by Henry and laid out by Henry. We just, it has butt jokes, and it's how we envisioned our book.
Yeah, that's so cool. So did you know, like, you talk about the numbers and that's not really the focus. So, like, how did you know that there was an audience ready to buy your book?
Well, we knew there was an audience that bought our app.
Okay.
And there are tons of paleo cookbooks out there now.
Yeah.
But I think at the time when our book came out in 2013, it still wasn't like the glut that it is now. And I don't know. I think that paleo people, because they don't have a lot of paleo friends in real life, are very loyal to their tribe. And so, and I don't always try to like sell crap to like my readers. Like, we really do believe in like the NPR model of putting out like all this free, great content. And then when we do put out something that hopefully it's like worth their money, and then by then they want to support us. And I don't know. I don't know. Like, that's just like
Great. Sure. Absolutely. So you put the book out, were there any big surprises or was the reception more or less what you expected?
Yeah. I think we just wanted to not disappoint our publisher. But, it's continued to sell, pretty well. I think that it's almost sold like 200,000, which is crazy.
Great.
And, we were nominated for a James Beard Award, which is crazy. And so I
don't
have
think
the
James
worst.
Beard was paleo.
No, like I have like the worst case of imposter syndrome. So I was like, what the? But yeah, all those things have been awesome and surprising.
How do you use that, the imposter syndrome?
Why do I have it?
No. How do you?
Oh, I just hide it. I just make sure people don't know I'm
I think everybody has that.
Yeah, I guess.
We've had a lot of people on this show tell us.
Yeah.
But, I think to some extent it fuels you.
Yeah, I think it does. I think I remember reading a New Yorker article about David Chang and how he has like total imposter syndrome. I'm like, what? How could he have imposter syndrome?
Sure.
So,
yeah. Are there, so you mentioned David Chang, are there like models that you saw for yourself as you were becoming this sort of food personality?
Well, there are definitely people I really admire. Like, I really admire Deb Perlman of Smitten Kitchen, because I feel like she has a beautiful website and she writes beautifully and her recipes always work, and she doesn't take ads. She's not a sellout in any way. Not like I'm saying that people who do those things are sellouts, but she's just, I think, very true to just making sure she has great content. And she's someone I would want to be friends with. And so I love her stuff.
Nice. Anybody else you looked at, like, to think, to kind of inform your process?
Well, I think Melissa Jolwan, who has the blog meljolwan.com, and her cookbooks are Well Fed and Well Fed too. She's also in the paleo space. But she is like, I think she's like a sister from another mister, and she self-published and totally did her own thing. And I just really admire how she's been able to do it and to chart her own course. And then in a year or two, she and her husband are moving to the Czech Republic because that's where she wants to end up. Wow. And I love that. I love that, it's not, for her, it's not, fame or, getting a TV show or anything. It really is just putting out kick-ass cookbooks and being, in charge of her own destiny.
And what about for you? What drives you to do this?
What drives me to do this? Well, I like putting out good content. I like being able to spend a lot of time with my family. And I also like being able to be in charge of my own destiny. Like, I love Portland. And so we just, we just got a place in Portland. So that's where I want my forever home. But right now, I think we're part-time until it's our forever home. But, like, I love that I can do that. I love that we can travel. I love that.
Why Portland?
So many reasons, except for when I found out that there's that whole Cascadian subduction. Yeah, that.
No, I don't know what that is.
Apparently, there's this giant fault line thing.
Oh, yeah.
That happens every 300 years, and they're overdue, and it's going to, like, wipe out.
Maybe their math is wrong.
Seattle. Yeah, hopefully. But I love Portland because I love the food scene a lot. I love the people. The people are all so open and nice. I love that there's nature. I love that, like, hiking trails and everything are so close. And the pace isn't this crazy, hectic pace because right now we live right in the heart of Silicon Valley and Palo Alto. And it's just, I don't know, I think it's not the best place to raise your kids, to have that much pressure. Sure. Because there are kids at the high schools who are committing suicide. Yeah. And that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like that, So
you have a friend who's a teacher in Palo Alto, and they've lost a number of kids every year.
Yeah. And I think the fact that it's an option, right? Like when I was growing up, it wasn't. Right. It was. I mean, you'd be sad or depressed. I mean, that's all part of being a teenager, but it didn't seem like suicide could be an option out. But now it is. So, that's why I like Portland. Yeah.
So how's you mentioned the Paleo tribe. Like, how is it, coming? I mean, I guess at some point everyone's an outsider, right? But you sort of found your way into it. Like, was that very welcoming as a community, or was there,
I think so.
Was there resistance? Are there, like, Paleo haters?
Oh, well, there's always haters, right? I mean, but I think that when I first got into it in, like, 2010, I think everybody felt the same way. They're like, oh, I can't believe how great we feel, and everyone else thinks we're crazy, but you guys don't think, like, my internet friends don't think I'm crazy. Yeah. And then we'd meet each other at, like, conferences or if we happen to be traveling in each other's area, we'd all meet up, and we were like, oh, look, like-minded people. And I think it's still like that. And especially, like, at CrossFit boxes, because, like, a lot of people who do CrossFit already, that's like a tribe, right? Because they're all in the cult of CrossFit. Yeah. But then a lot of them do Paleo, and so that's, I think, another place where people find each other. But I think it's pretty welcoming. But Paleo is getting a little more mainstream. I mean, it's not quite as mainstream as I think it is, because I, like, live and breathe it.
Because you're in it.
Yeah. But I think it is, because I think everybody who goes Paleo knows where someone else came from. Like, oh, I remember feeling that way, and I remember how it was kind of hard to overcome this, or it's hard to deal with, like, naysayers or whatever. And so I think it's pretty welcoming. Yeah.
It's interesting. Well, you said something that sort of everyone else thinks we're crazy. Yeah. Like, I think that's so important for communities, right? To feel sort of
us
special.
Against them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's so funny because one of my friends, who I hadn't seen in a long time, who was one of my college friends, was like, wow, what would Michelle from, like, the 90s think of Michelle today? And I was like, wow, she would hate her. Like, she would think, like, who is this crazy person who believes in all of this kooky stuff? But I really do feel like now I'm like, I feel way more open-minded about things. I'm like, that sounds crazy, but you never know.
Yeah. How funny. So, this, like it's so easy, I think, for people to just go off the deep end, and not just with paleo, but with any of these trends. And I think I'm fascinated by your background, coming from health and medicine. You can't have a conversation with somebody without getting either medical advice or diet advice, right? And I think, paleo, I'm like you, that I sort of discovered it. It was actually kind of prescribed to me by a doctor.
That's a very progressive doctor.
Yeah, she's a naturopath, and she's great. And she, figured me out, ran a bunch of tests, and looked at me and said, here's what your problem, and here's what you should do. But as you start to learn about it, and again, not just paleo, I see this with, there's so much pseudoscience. And I think that's also true in medicine. Like, in science itself is so much pseudoscience, right? And there's so much of just this, like, people deciding that something's true.
Yeah. No, see, that is true. There is a lot of pseudoscience that people like bring up in paleo and in a lot of these kind of health movements. But I think for me, it was just seeing how I felt. And I think just kind of bringing it back to the basics and, eating foods that are made from actual ingredients that you cook with. Like, I don't think that can really be bad for you. You know what I mean? And I just felt so much better. But that's why I never talk about like the science behind stuff. Like, I leave that to whoever else wants to defend paleo.
Sure.
And they're like, no, but you're like a pharmacist and you have a nutrition degree. I'm like, yeah, but that was my nutrition degree taught me like totally the wrong stuff.
Right.
And I think things are changing all the time, and a lot of clinical trials are misinterpreted.
Or as you mentioned, they might be
are manipulated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Sure.
And so I think people just have to see what works for them.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who do try it really do feel so great. And then they think everything they've ever learned is a lie.
Right.
And so, like,
yeah.
So I never try to convince anyone to try it. When I was working, it was like my dirty secret. Like, I never told anyone at work that I had this secret blog and all this other stuff. Yeah, that
probably doesn't go over too well in a traditional medicine.
Yeah,
circle.
but then people started finding me. Like, they're like, oh, like in the middle of the night, like people would come up to the pharmacy and they're like, I heard that, I read your blog and I think like I feel so much better and I've lost all of this weight. And I'm like, okay, like, can you sign my book? I'm like, okay.
That's great.
But like when I was working at the hospital, I would see all of these doctors and nurses, and I know like they're trying to do the right thing because they're following what like the American Heart Association tells them to eat and do.
Right.
But they all don't feel good, and they're I was like, it's not working the way it's just not working.
Sure. So the book's been a big success. The socks are awesome. Like, what's the next what's the next phase?
So Henry and I are working on our second book.
Okay.
And so that is what we're up to our necks in it. We have our first pages due to our publisher by the fall. So we're just trying to crank it, and this time I think it'll be even more comic book-like, which we really like.
Cool.
So yeah, and the book this time is just, we haven't made a big announcement about it, but basically it's going to try to make it even easier for people to cook for themselves. Because I think ultimately that's the most important thing, is to actually cook your meals, know what you're cooking, and eat tasty food. Yeah.
Do you think, when we think about the food industrial complex, there's so many factors conspiring to keep people from eating healthy food.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I wanted to join the flavor industry. Like when I was a nutrition and food science major, before I decided that lab work sucked, I was like, I totally want to be part of the flavor industry and come up with these chemicals that like taste this certain way, and you know, this magic compound that will make it brown in the microwave, like all this stuff. I'm like, wow, better living through chemistry. I was all about that, and now I'm like, no, maybe we should just, you know, a carrot is a carrot. Like, you know.
Yeah. Do you think that, you know, I'm always fascinated when these things happen, right? So whether it's something like paleo, you know, I think food has undergone this revolution from, you know, food trucks, street food, you know, completely reinvented fast food, right? These TV chefs, you know, there's always been chefs on TV, but there's this explosion. Right?
Yeah, they're celebrities.
There's celebrities, and there's and you know, it used to be. I mean, you know, you probably remember, like, food just wasn't that good anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, fine dining even was like, there was so little creativity and innovation happening, right? And in the last 20 years, maybe that's all completely changed. And you know, I wonder. So I'm fascinated with like the industry, the restaurant industry, that seems to change so little as like all these big things are happening. And, you know, I'm wondering, like, how come no one's hired Roy Choi to be their big corporate chef for a massive chain or any of that, right? Like no one's doing that. You know, the best you get is now there's like a gluten-free menu, which is something, I guess, but it's still crap, right? It's just
Well, I think a lot of it is like kind of this underground movement, right?
Yeah.
So I think until there's enough demand, that's when they'll start responding. I mean, that's why now I think big companies like Green Giant have like cauliflower rice that you can buy.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So they are kind of jumping on it now.
Yeah.
But people have been, you know, ricing their own cauliflower for like 5 years.
Yeah.
So I think it takes time for corporate
That's
America.
a pain in the ass too, by the way.
It is.
Yeah.
But, you know, the frozen Trader Joe's stuff is pretty good. Have
We
you
just
tried
ate
that?
it last night.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
makes
really
it
good.
super easy.
Yeah.
So I think it takes time for it to kind of cross over. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that corporate America really will totally, you know, get on board.
You know, I spent some time talking to one of the canned and frozen food conglomerates last year, and they were talking about, I guess, the term they're using. Well, it's so that the trend is people shop in the perimeter of the store and completely ignoring the center aisles,
Right.
which is where the frozen and canned food
Yeah.
lives. And so, you know, I get your point. Like, demand's got to drive that, but you know, I also feel like they're so slow
Yeah.
to understand. They like until it's really hurting, right? In which case, it's usually too late,
Yeah.
right? Like, they're not going to get people back into canned food.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. It's a weird thing, and a lot of people have accused paleo of also being like elitist because it's so expensive, right?
it is expensive.
Yeah, it can be really expensive. But I think there are ways to make it more affordable, and I think the reason why paleo is also, you know, gaining a lot of steam is because there are lots of moms like me who really care about what they're feeding their kids, and so they are. I think there is a mindset change. And people are, you know, starting to allot more money to groceries as opposed to other things that they shouldn't be spending their money on.
Like maybe eating out.
Yeah, eating out, or even like cable TV, or, you know, other things like all
Sure.
of these electronics and things that you really don't necessarily need. And so,
Yeah, I mean, cavemen didn't have
right.
iPads.
Right, exactly. But I think, like, for me, like, I was like, what am I feeding my kids? Why is it that I won't eat their leftovers?
Yeah.
You know, so I think that there is kind of this big change, and I think it'll happen.
Yeah. You mentioned, you know, that it's maybe peaked, So what does that mean for Nom Nom Paleo?
I don't know. That people are always like, "What's your 1-year plan? What's your 5-year plan?" We don't know. I
Okay.
mean, I think we're going to ride it as long as we can. But I think I'm willing to evolve, no pun intended. But because I think that's kind of how everyone is. You just kind of change and pivot.
Yeah.
And right now it's been a great ride. And I'm very happy with how things are. I'm very grateful. And I like being in my present state. So I'm like, whatever happens, happens. We'll figure out.
Is there a temptation to make it more of a business?
I think I have the luxury of Henry not quitting his real job for us to really go crazy on that.
Mm-hmm.
And if he were to quit his real job, then we'd probably have to reevaluate things. But because well, that's hard to say because, Nom Nom Paleo is our business. We do make money through Nom Nom
No,
Paleo.
but I mean,
yeah.
presumably you could go out and get investors and you
Right.
there, whatever. There could
I think
be
I like being a lifestyle business.
Okay.
And so I'm happy with it helping us pay the mortgage, helping us do the things we want to do. But
Yeah.
my goal is not to take over the world and turn everyone paleo. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to be paleo, I'm happy to make you, to show you a tastier way to do it. But I'm cool with how things are, which is probably not the smartest business person thing to say, but I like it like this.
I don't know. I think a lot of businesses go under because they kind of push that harder than the market is ready for.
Yeah.
Or maybe harder than they're ready for.
Yeah, and I don't want to again, we're like this small operation, so I don't want to kill Henry, and I don't want to totally have all these issues because I'm not sleeping, I'm not eating well, I want to enjoy life because this is the only life we have.
Yeah.
So
Love it. So give me some.
But I think this might also be because I'm in my early 40s now. I think if this all happened when I was in my 20s, I might go into it with a different perspective, and
Right.
The grind would be everything, which it still is. We don't get me wrong, we work all the time, but I think our goals are different than they would have been if we were younger. And we have 2 kids that we want to spend time with, and my oldest son is already 11, and he's gonna fly the coop in 7 years. So, I like how things are.
Yeah. What's the toughest day on the job?
What's the toughest day on the job? I think just right now with the whole cookbook development, it is just making sure we hit the deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
So it is, I have to handle all the social media. So I have to do all that stuff, and we put out our newsletter, which I do. But then it's also doing all the recipe testing and development, because Henry is very concerned about how things look, which is great.
Yeah.
But I'm super concerned that the recipes work. And so that is the thing that stresses me out the most. He's like, who cares? It looks good. I'm like, no, it has to taste good.
Yeah, sure.
I don't care what it looks like.
So you're just cooking constantly?
I am cooking constantly, or I'm always, every time I'm eating, I'm like, oh, this is a really cool flavor combination. How do I dumb it down for a home cook?
Right.
So it's always just having that.
Yeah.
But again, this is first world problems. Come on,
sure.
right? This is, back when I was up in the middle of the night and, dealing drugs and then coming back and taking care of the kids, that was a little harder.
Yeah, I bet. You mentioned, you do all the social media. So how is there, you do study that, and are you a growth hacker and you learn all the tricks, or?
No. Well, I listen to a lot of podcasts that talk about different ways to do things.
Like what?
I like Smart Passive Income because I think Pat Flynn, he went to Cal just like I did, and I like that he's just kind of made himself who he is today.
Okay.
I love listening to the Tim Ferriss podcast a lot.
Yeah.
And I get good tips from, I mean, obviously those people are, a lot of his guests are like billionaires or crazy founders and VCs, but they're little hacks that I learn. I'm like, oh, maybe I should meditate more, or maybe I shouldn't, pay attention to my email that much. I have to do an autoresponder. Like there are certain things that I do.
Sure.
But the way I do social media is, I think of it's not even social media. Everything that we put out for Nom Nom Paleo, including social media, I always think of myself as the consumer of that. Like, how would I feel if someone's always, just doing links to sell their stuff? Like, I think that would be lame. And so, like, on Twitter, I'm just always responding to people. Like, if people ping me on Twitter, I'm always just answering their questions. Instagram, I only put up stuff that I think will be helpful. Like, hey, this is what I'm eating. And this is, like, if you're in Portland, this is a great place to get gluten-free food. And so I always want it to be helpful, useful, and Henry makes sure it's pretty.
Cool. That's great.
Yeah. And there are certain ones that I just don't like. Like Facebook is not my favorite at all.
Do you do it? I mean,
I do it. So we put stuff up on there, and I check in on it occasionally. But I much prefer Instagram and Twitter. And I really like Periscope, but nobody's really adopting, I think, Periscope.
Yeah, not so much.
But I like it. I think that I can show people live how to make something in my own kitchen.
Yeah. And
people can ask me questions. But
why do you not like Facebook?
I feel like there's kind of a very low barrier of entry to Facebook. So everybody's on it, right? Like your grandma's on it. And I feel like I always get the rudest interactions on Facebook.
Really?
Yeah, sometimes.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And Facebook isn't anonymous, so I'm always curious.
Yeah, it seems like it would be the other way.
Right?
Yeah.
But maybe because there's such a low barrier to entry, this is just how these people would act in real life. And
do you get trolled? Is that
sometimes I get trolled?
Really?
And so then I'm like, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Facebook. I much prefer Instagram and Twitter.
So is there any feedback that's really, maybe stung, but it's helped?
There's a lot of feedback. There's always stuff like, this recipe didn't work.
Yeah.
And so I get immediate feedback about recipes. So that's why I have to make sure they work right away.
It's good.
But no matter what, I think that you can always learn something from negative feedback.
Yeah.
And I definitely have a much thicker skin than before. But unless it's something totally not helpful and it's just a mean comment, then there's no.
Of course, sure.
Yeah. But otherwise, like someone will say, oh, I really don't like how she's always using these certain words and, or whatever. I'm like, oh, that's true. I use that word a lot in my writing. And so, or like she's always taking pictures like this or whatever it is. I think that you can always learn something from
Is there anything that's
feedback.
made you kind of question the core of what you're doing or that's like rock solid?
I think it's pretty rock solid because I think I can always go back to dealing drugs, right? And so once it's not fun, we'll just cut the cord. We'll move to Portland.
Nice. You make your own line of drugs.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. The scary thing for me, I read something, and again, but everything, like you have to question the validity of all this stuff. But so I'm like, I won't take drugs, but I take a lot of supplements. And then, I read something last month saying that like some test or whatever had shown that like 70% of supplements don't even contain the stuff that is on the label because that's not regulated.
Yeah, it's not regulated.
And then, but then, my core belief is like not that the regulation really helps either.
Yeah.
So, you're basically, I think as a consumer, it's easy to just feel like you just don't know what to do.
Yeah. And I think that's true. But that's why I think, like, when you find paleo, you find other people, and then you find people you trust within paleo that will kind of, like, there are certain people I go, like, I really trust, like, Chris Kresser. I like Mark Sisson a lot. So I look to them if there's some question about, say, I don't know, like, is there too much of, like someone was asking me about like mad cow disease and bone broth. And
Okay.
I'm like, well,
Wow.
that is technically a possibility because prions are not broken down with heat, right?
Okay.
But at the same time, the chance of that actually happening are so small. Like, I think that's a...
Yeah, are we getting mad cow disease in the United States?
I don't think there's been a case in many, many years. And so I think sometimes you can fall down that rabbit hole too much, whereas I think the best way, like someone was asking me about like plastic safety because I used to sous vide a lot. And sous vide is where, you put meat or vegetables vacuum sealed in some sort of plastic in a temperature controlled water bath. And it was really great when I was working nights because I could batch cook a bunch. You don't ruin anything, and especially grass-fed meat is so expensive. Like you can perfectly cook stuff. And so people started asking, like, well, what about plastic? What about like all the plasticizers and BPA and all this other stuff? And then I started really freaking out about it. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. Like, I could be exposing my kids and all this stuff. But then I talked to my friend who worked for, like, a failure analysis company. And he's like, well, that is all true. Like, you technically,
In
these
theory.
things, yes, these things could happen. But you are way more likely to be killed crossing the street
Sure.
by getting hit by a car than any of this stuff eventually killing you. And that just kind of put things in perspective. Like, you do the best you can, but you have to enjoy life, too. And so that's kind of where I think of things. Like, that's why when I'm in LA, I'm going to go on a taco crawl.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get kicked out of here in just a minute. But so I have a last couple questions, and then we'll let you go.
Okay.
You mentioned the hacks. So what are some favorite, as someone running your own business, give us your Tim Ferriss stuff. Like what are the most important habits or tools for you?
Oh, that's hard. I don't think I have that figured out.
Okay.
I can tell you cooking hacks. I have cooking hacks figured out. So
Give us
I
cooking
think
hacks.
you should always figure out which ingredients have umami and add them to whatever you have. So umami is the fifth taste. So it's not sweet, salty, sour, or bitter. It is that indescribable, delicious, meaty taste. And so fish sauce is umami, like liquid umami, and you just add a little bit to anything, not just Asian food. And it totally amps it up. Like, I will make my kids scrambled eggs. I will use fish sauce instead of salt, and it tastes amazing. And you should always add mushrooms. You should always have tomato paste. You should have seaweed and furikake, because all those things add umami, and they will instantly make your food taste better without you having to do anything.
Love it. That's awesome.
But business hacks, I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out.
Okay. What about just like daily habit stuff? Like,
I do try to meditate.
yeah.
And I
What do you do?
I do Headspace.
Yeah, me too.
And then I also,
James too.
yeah, I think it's a great tool.
Yeah.
I also try to go on a walk once a day just to kind of clear my mind, and that's when I listen to my podcasts.
Yeah.
And I just love listening to podcasts when I'm walking. I have Flux on all my devices.
Yeah.
I have the Amber goggles. I downloaded the iOS 9.3 so I could have that night shift so that my electronic devices aren't shining blue light in my face at night. And so I make sure I have daylight, like I walk around outside and get some sun in the morning. And I back away from the electronic devices, by like 8 or 9 p.m. And I don't keep any of them in my bedroom.
Wow.
And I also have it completely blacked out in my bedroom.
Yeah.
Like, we have blackout shades. And this is probably a remnant of me working nights and having to try to recreate night
Try to sleep
during the day.
Yeah.
But that is huge. I think any little light that's on in your bedroom as well, like, if you have VCR, cover all the little lights.
DVR thing kills me.
Cover them all up, and they will make a huge difference in how you
that's
sleep.
a good one.
Because I think sleep is the most important thing. Food is second. Exercise is third.
Yeah. What do you miss the most?
Like food-wise?
Yeah, like junk that.
I used to love bread and pasta a lot. I used to do pasta tasting menus
Nice.
all the time. But I feel so much better that I really don't miss it as much. And it was hard initially
Yeah.
because I would just feel the pull of the breadbasket whenever I sat at a restaurant. But that's probably the only thing. And like noodles. As like a Chinese person, I miss noodles.
Sure. Nice. Well, thank you so much for coming.
No, this is a lot of fun.
This is awesome having you here. Where does everybody find you?
I think all things Nom Nom Paleo. So
Okay.
nomnompaleo.com, and then all social media except for Snapchat because someone stole
You're
Nom
kidding.
Nom Paleo. Some guy's sitting on it.
Oh, you could probably get it back. You got to call Snapchat.
I did. And
Really?
they said it's first come, first serve.
Oh, that sucks.
I know. So
Shame
I'm,
on you, Snapchat.
I know. I'm Michi Tam on Snapchat, but I just learned it today.
Yeah.
But it looks pretty fun.
I don't know if it's your audience.
Yeah, I think that is going to make, all these moms that are turning to Snapchat now are going to make all of the cool teens want to back off.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Appreciate you coming by. And thanks for all the lessons.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun.